Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's video I just want to talk a little bit about being a midwife assistant, or rather how to become one, what a midwife assistant is, what they aren't, that sort of thing. So let's just jump right into it. I have my phone here and I just bullet pointed some like basic questions and then answers to those questions. So first question, what is a midwife assistant? So basically an assistant is what the title or the name implies, is an assistant to a midwife. And so they are either assisting a certified professional midwife, so a CPM, so these are licensed home birth midwives in the state, or a CNM, a certified nurse midwife, who is a nurse who went to nursing school. So they're RNs who went to graduate school to be a midwife. So those are CNMs. So what does a midwife assistant do? What are their duties and what is their role? They are in charge of taking and keeping track of maternal vitals. So vitals being blood pressure, pulse, temperature, things like that. And also fetal heart tones with a Doppler. So keeping track of heart tones during labor, any sort of fluctuations, like counting the heart tones, things like that. Midwife assistants are responsible for charting. So during the labor or birth process, charting either by hand or on a maybe an app or electronic health record system. So keeping track of what's going on. So okay, at 10:02 p.m. the mother switched positions, or at 10:30 p.m. the mother had something to eat. At, let's just say, 10:45 p.m. The baby's head came out. So keeping track of time and just having a record of what happened and how the labor progressed. And also drawing up or preparing either like medication. So it depends on the state, but licensed home birth midwives or birth center midwives are allowed to have certain medications like in their kit. So like, for example, Pitocin is one, or like Methergin. Like I could explain these medications in a different video potentially, but just knowing what the medications are used for and being able to anticipate, okay, well, if a woman is hemorrhaging, bleeding, I might need to have some Pitocin, because Pitocin can stop postpartum hemorrhaging or bleeding. So I might need to have that drawn up and have it on the side just in case. So knowing what these medications are used for and then having them drawn up, being able to recognize when there is a potential emergency and being able to anticipate, that's a big key word for assistants, and their role is being able to anticipate the needs of the midwife. So if you see like shoulder dystocia, or where the baby's head is getting stuck as it's descending through the pelvis, so being able to at least recognize what that looks like. So for example, like turtling, so baby, the head might come out and then go back in, and might do that several times. So it's like, okay, we might have a dystocia. So okay, let me be prepared to okay, I know for in situations like this, we do the McRoberts maneuver. So being able to recognize that and knowing what to do, or what medications to have on the side, or maybe you need to have the resuscitation cradle ready for the baby. So just being able to anticipate that and know what that looks like. Midwife assistants do not deliver babies, so they do not catch the baby. They do not make any sort of diagnosis and saying, hey, this is a shoulder dystocia, or hey, you have preeclampsia. Assistants do not do that. They are not allowed to make any sort of decisions as it relates to care or anything like that. So another big one too is they are not able to assist births without a licensed midwife present. So that is another big thing. Even if you are assisting at a birth and you arrive, like for example at a home birth, and you arrive, they always say don't go in. Well, at least for here, like I said, it depends on state to state. You want to look into your state regulations for that. But even as an assistant, if you get there before the midwife, do not go in, because you could be held liable if you go in without a licensed professional there. So you stay and you wait for the midwife, and then the two of you go in together. So how are they different than a doula? So I get this question all the time. They're like, oh, so are you a doula, or how is that different? So basically, doulas are hired directly by the client, or the family. So they are hired, and say I'm 27 weeks pregnant and I want a doula, and I'm like, okay, I want a doula. They are with me from now up until labor. They are with you throughout the doulas are with you throughout the whole duration of your pregnancy. They help with like comfort measures, or like going over different positions, or like techniques to help you be relaxed. We're talking about a birth doula, because there are also different types of doulas, but that's a whole nother video. I am not privy to doula life, but there are also, just know there are also different types of doulas, like postpartum doulas, or I think they're called bereavement doulas. Like, there are different types. But yeah, a doula is there, hired by the client, there throughout the whole duration of the pregnancy to provide support, like general like education about things you can do for like healthy pregnancy. They're the support person essentially. Whereas assistants are not hired by clients, they are hired directly by the midwife, the home birth midwife, or a birth center. And also with assistants, you will not, if you know, I'm 27 weeks pregnant and I see a midwife, I am not going to see the assistant at all throughout the duration of my pregnancy, because they're not hired by the client, they're hired by the midwife. So the assistant is there to just assist the midwife, and you will only see the assistant like at your actual birth. Well, for me personally, how I like to at least go to, as an assistant, I like to at least go to 1 or 2 prenatal appointments just so they can meet me, see my face, yada yada, and just so I can like meet them as well, so that at the time of birth I don't just show up at their house or at the birth center and they're like, who is this? So next question is, what education or training is required for an assistant? So basically this is a very niche like field. So you can't just Google how to become a midwife assistant, and there are no sort of degree programs. You do not need a degree. There are some certificate programs that exist, but they're very few. It's not like with a doula, you can Google doula certificate training or programs and plenty of them come up, right? They're similar in that way, in that they are just certificate trainings, but there are not that many for midwife assistants. So a couple of them that I do know about, or that I've come across, are let's see, the American Association of Birth Centers. They have like an online training or like course for assistants, midwife assistants. The Black Birth Sisters Birth Academy, they have a training for midwife assistants. And then also Birth Arts International, those are just a couple who has trainings for like certificate programs, where it's like from start to finish, you learn about the do's and the don'ts, or what they do, basically all the things that I'm going over, plus like the skills and probably like some business components of being a midwife assistant too. And then there are also different trainings for the skills, particularly for the skills needed. Bare minimum, you need Neonatal Resuscitation program, and that's by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and also BLS, so basic life support for providers. So it's a provider level CPR training and course basically, and that's by the American Heart Association. Let me see. Yes, American Heart Association. Yeah. So bare minimum, those are the two things. So what knowledge is helpful? So this isn't a question that I have been asked specifically, but just I came up with this question because just from me, like I said, I'm still like working through and learning as an assistant. But so this question has derived from that. Also my experience, because I do have like a bachelor's and a master's in public health, or health related field. So just knowing those two things combined, I said, okay, if someone was coming to me and saying, oh, what sort of knowledge is helpful to have, this is where that little list came from. So I have anatomy and physiology. So it's not necessarily required, but I feel that it would behoove you to know a little bit about just basic human anatomy, right? So if you're at a birth and let's just say two midwives are working together, and one says to the other, and you're the assistant, and one says to the other at a birth, okay, the baby is in the pelvic inlet. What does that mean? Like, yes, I would hope everyone knows where the pelvis is, but just knowing, okay, just to have a sense of what's going on, and you're not just there like waiting around. Like it's very helpful to know, okay, where the pelvis is, or you know, the anatomy. For example, let's just say the midwife says, oh, the baby is sacrum anterior. Where's your sacrum? You know, what is or anterior, posterior, transverse. These are all anatomical terms, you know what I mean? So it would be helpful to know about those things. And then also I put knowing about just the general labor and childbirth process, like what happens, you know. So whether that's attending a childbirth education class, like in person or online or something like that, or you know, if the midwife calls you and says the woman is in active labor, what is active labor? What is going on during active labor? So it would behoove you to know about that. And then also medical or birth related terminology. That's a big one, and that also goes back to charting, right? If you're going to be charting, you need to know about these quick, like for contractions. Oh, the woman is having contractions. Rather than writing or typing all of that out, you know, CTX is the abbreviation for contractions. So learning and knowing about that. If a midwife says, okay, I have a new client, she's a G3 P2, like what does that mean, right? So knowing about like terminology like that. The last question or kind of point that I want to talk about is, okay, well, how do I become one? And so this kind of goes back to the whole education piece of, well, is there any education or training involved? But how do you become one? Really, like I said, this is not a thing where you can't just go on Indeed and be like midwife assistant jobs, and Indeed will just spit out all these options for you. That's not going to happen. Basically, what I've been telling people is just to really learn about the birth world or birth landscape in your community. So like I said, this to me is a very like community based thing. This is you know, out of hospital setting. So there are no midwife assistant in the hospital. That's just not a thing. I would recommend like reaching out to your local like birth centers, or you know, Googling like midwifery service or home birth midwives, or getting connected to like birth related Facebook groups and things like that, and asking questions like, how is anyone looking for an assistant, or can someone train me or take me on as an assistant? Things like that. I also didn't talk about payment. So in terms of payment, like I said, this is not, it's a, you know, niche sort of role or whatever. So payment can be anywhere, just based off my like research or talking to other like birth assistants or something like that, or other like birth centers who say, okay, we pay our assistants X, Y, and Z. At least in Arizona, it ranges from like, if you and like skill and experience level, from like $200 a birth to like $900 a birth. It really just falls anywhere in between there per birth. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything I have. I probably maybe missed a couple things here and there, and I'll probably talk about some more things as new ideas or questions come about. But if you all have any questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.